Something that I've been fascinated by ever since the birth of my daughter is a kind of sideline comment that people keep making when we talk about her and the things that she does or doesn't do, quite frankly. Because being that she's only 2 weeks old, she just kind of lays there, she cries, she poops, she sleeps. That's the summary of her existence. She obviously doesn't have a 9 to 5 yet. And something people keep saying is that wouldn't it be great to go back to those days when all you had to worry about was nothing. She worries about nothing. She has no anxiety whatsoever. And it might seem kind of odd if you think, oh, well, she's a baby. What would she have to worry about? Duh. But this has come up probably in a good dozen or more conversations since her birth, almost once a day, really. Um, that people are like longing for or romanticizing what it would be like to be that size and to be that life stage again. Or people talking about just going back to previous stages in their own life of like go back to high school and all you had to worry about was grades and those obnoxious kids in your third period. Or to go back to the old days when you were a grade school kid and the only thing you were concerned about is what your science fair project was going to be that year, and that was your big thing, right? Wouldn't it be nice if the only thing you had to worry about Saturday morning was getting up early enough to catch the cartoons, or the only thing you had to worry about on Sunday was making sure you had the day's race TiVoed or whatever? Like, wouldn't it be nice? This happens in other ways as well, that people romanticize the living or the kind of lifespans of animals. That wouldn't it be nice to live like usually highly iconographed animals like a wolf or a lion or a a gazelle, say, or most more famously recently would be in the Umbrella Academy. They're talking about birds that they eat when they want to eat, and they sleep when they want to sleep, and they have they reproduce. I'll say it like that. Whenever they want to reproduce, and if they don't want to, they don't want to, and they just fly through day to day, no worries about a 401k or retirement or insurance. They're not concerned about those things, right? Wouldn't it be nice? And what's missed is how panicked most animals live. The fact that, yes, my daughter has a carefree life, but that's because she has been given that carefree life by us. There are some infants that were born the same day that she was that do not have that kind of a luxury of being carefree because maybe they were born with complications or they were born into a household with complications. And even if they're aware, whether they're aware of it or not, there's things that that child can, maybe even should be worried about, even though they're not capable of it. Right? And we're all aware of what those kind of stories look like, what they shape out to being: divorce, disabilities, developmental concerns, educational faulting, or like we all know what those things shape out to be: abuse, neglect, right? And not only is her life not really carefree just on her part, but she's incredibly vulnerable. When she was born, she had a light touch of jaundice, such that we had to have her plugged into a light on the wall that would help her body to process that stuff. That without that, she would have starved to death and died. That's like a wonder of modern science that's allowed her to be able to be here today. Her mom, while she was in the last couple of stages of pregnancy, uh, had some heart and blood pressure issues, so that if not for medical intervention, she probably would have died as well. Not to mention the fact that she was born in a sterile environment as opposed to, I don't know, a hotel bathroom somewhere, or like she was born into a sterile environment which helped protect her ability to continue living after that point, and she had immediate medical attention, both her and her mom, so that um, the she was able to recover in an expedient manner, right? Minimizing the chances and likelihood of infection, right? That those, like, it's not a mistake that childbirth is one of the main things that's taken women off of the board throughout human history. It's a traumatic and challenging process. And it really makes more sense for it to have a high cost like that. But they're both still here. And nothing that they contributed to the event caused that to be. It was external actors that made that possible, that counteracted, or let's say that solved the equations of their vulnerability in those circumstances. And it's an ongoing thing of that, like, she cries because that's the only means she has of communicating, right? If she doesn't cry, we don't know that she's hungry or that she's uncomfortable or whatever. We need her to cry. And that's an uncomfortable thing at 2 in the morning, sure, but we need her to do that. But eventually, if 10 years from now, all she has to do, has the ability to do, is just cry, something's gone off the rails. Something didn't go the way is, let's say, normative, right? By 10 years old, she should be forming sentences and writing letters, at the very least, writing words. So, the same thing is true with animals, that they might live a carefree existence compared to what we live, But that doesn't mean that they're carefree. They go meal to meal. Hummingbirds, for instance, for all their beauty and grace, because of those little wing beats that they do, if they miss more than a few minutes without consuming calories, they starve to death. And most predators have a 25% or less success rate on hunting, so they're almost always in a state of hunger. The reason that they keep on hunting is that they need to. There aren't very many animals, especially carnivorous predators, that store away over time. There you have bears that build up the fat layer so they can hibernate, right? But for the most part, most animals are in a constant state of fear of death by many means. Like, let's say lightning strike and there's a fire across the savannah. That's something they couldn't control, yet they were still just as vulnerable to it whether they knew it or not. And then that doesn't even account for the way that humans have affected their lives, taking away their habitat and taking away their prey species and just altering things in ways that humans didn't realize what they were doing at the time, or maybe they did, which is far worse. And as a result, predators starving to death because their main source of nutrients has been wiped off the mat, and prey species getting out of control because their primary controlling predator has been removed or hunted uncontrollably to the point where they are no longer able to control that species growth. So, what am I saying? We have a problem with romanticizing things that are different from ourselves, and we also do it historically, where wouldn't it be nice to go back to a more glamorous age, like the flapper or the gilded age or the knights in armor and stuff. It wouldn't be nice to go back to those things, but that's because we're only highlighting the glamour the things that you long for. The fact that a baby can sleep 18 hours a day. Wouldn't that be nice? Right? Especially for me who works at night, who works night shifts, like wouldn't that be nice? But are you willing to have that vulnerability? Because let's say somebody was to shatter your C3 on your neck, your cervical vertebrae. If somebody was to do that, you would be put into the exact same biological state as that infant. Maybe you could speak at least, but you'd have that exact same level of vulnerability as a newborn infant. Does it seem as attractive now? You can sleep all day long if you want to. You just won't be able to get up after. Is that what you want? No. Of course you don't. And nobody does. Whether it's the product of just age and deterioration or a violent accident. Nobody wants that, because at the point is what we really want is just whatever someone else has. We want the wealth of another class. We just don't want to do the work that it took them to acquire that wealth. We want the massive amounts of things that the wealthy and the beautiful have. We just don't want to have the debt that a lot of them have in order to have it, right? Wouldn't it be nice to have a massive global industrial corporation to run? Because you could totally kill it, I'm sure. But if you had what it took to do that, you'd be doing it. Wouldn't it be nice to have a Medal of Honor or some other kind of military citations that way? Wouldn't it be nice to have the respect, be able to put your uniform on Memorial Day and have people buy you free drinks? Wouldn't that be nice? But do you want to have the PTSD, the traumatic brain injuries that that person has in order to have earned those medals? No. Yes, it's nice having a baby and having it, being able to listen to it coo. But do you want to get up at 3 in the morning and try to figure out what its crisis is so that you can get it back to a static state so that you can then go back to sleep because you have to be at work in the morning? Is that what you want? The answer is no. You want the cuddles without the crisis. And that's a problem of the human condition. And it's something that we address in Scripture all the time, that people look over the fence at some other person's state and be like, I wish I was like that. I wish I had those people's problems. When in fact, you have no idea what their problems are like, and they're looking across the same fence at your life, wanting the same, what you have instead.